What's up guys and welcome back to the channel. So if you've gathered by the title of this video, today we're going to be looking at training splits. And the reason for today's video is because for the average person that isn't doing a bodybuilding show, that isn't training for a specific sport, they're just going to the gym casually, maybe to lose a bit of weight, maybe to gain a bit of muscle. A lot of them have no idea what a training split is or how to create their own one. They're just following one that they found through an Instagram model, or they've just Googled what's the best training split. And the issue with this is training splits aren't a one size fits all. They are subjective to the individual. Now, you can follow a training split of someone who has the same goal as you, but the issue arises if that individual is self-employed and can get to the gym 6 times a week, but you are a full-time worker with a family and have other responsibilities. It's very unrealistic that you're going to be able to follow a 6-day training split if you can only get into the gym 3 days a week. So today I'm going to cover everything that you guys need to know about how to create a training split, sets, reps, exercise selections, and high frequency and high volume training splits. And hopefully by the end of this you can come to a determination of which training split is good for you and how to create your own training split based on your own individual needs. So with that said, let's get the intro rolling and into this week's video. So when it comes to training, we need a structure. We need to maximize the exercises that we're doing and the time we're spending in the gym, and we need to apply an efficient way of tracking our progress from every single workout. And when I say structure, I'm not necessarily talking about the structure of a workout. Although knowing what you're doing is very important, it's equally as important to know when you're doing it. So for example, we have two individuals, person A and person B. Both are training 4 days a week, but person A isn't following a training split. They show up to the gym and train whatever they feel like training that day. Whereas person B is following a specific split, which is an upper lower training split, which just means he's training upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body. So if you take a look on screen at the moment, you'll see a little chart that I've laid out to illustrate both training cycles for that 1 week. What we're looking at mainly with this diagram is the total amount of times that they have trained a certain muscle group for that week. So when we look at the table, on Monday, person A trained chest, biceps and abs, whereas person B trained chest, back and abs. On Tuesday, it was a rest day for them both. On Wednesday, person A then went biceps, triceps and shoulders, whereas person B went hamstrings, glutes and calves, which is a lower body day. Wednesday was another rest day, and then Friday, person A trained legs, whereas person B trained shoulders, biceps and triceps. And on Saturday, person A trained chest, shoulders, triceps, whereas person B trained quads and hams, and then it was a rest day on Sunday. So like I said, the key thing that we're looking at is how many times they've trained that muscle group per week, and this is one of the big things that a training split can help avoid. If we look at person A, they trained chest twice that week, biceps twice, shoulders once, triceps once, and legs once. Whereas person B trained every single muscle group at least once. Person A didn't even train shoulders, and their leg day was just a generic leg day. There was no specific quad, calf, and glute dominant exercises. And this is what training splits can help avoid, and that's overtraining and undertraining of certain muscle groups. So if you're not structuring, or at the bare minimum noting down what you have or what you are going to train throughout the week, you may get to a point where you're training your chest 3 to 4 times a week, but you're only training your back once. And this leads to not only a very incomplete and uneven physique, but it also creates a lagging and overdeveloped muscle group. This being an overdeveloped chest because we train it so much, and an underdeveloped back because we're not training it at all, or we're barely training it. So training splits at the bare minimum are just an easy way of structuring, keeping track of, and making sure you're training everything evenly to give you the best possible looking physique where your portions are all evenly distributed and there's no disproportions from arms to shoulders, chest to back, everything. So you can break training splits down into two categories, and that's high volume, low frequency, or high frequency and low volume. A high frequency training program, something like a push-pull legs, allows you to train a muscle group more often throughout the week. So in the case of this example, a high frequency program will allow us to train every muscle group in our body at least twice for that 1 week. And this is handy, again, as we touched on the last point, if we have a lagging muscle group. If something is very underdeveloped, a high frequency training program or training split will just allow you to hit that muscle group more often throughout the week, in turn helping the development of that muscle to catch back up into proportion to the rest of your body. Whereas with a high volume and low frequency training split, it's the complete opposite. We would be training a muscle group per day, but because of that, you are able to increase the amount of exercises and exercise variations that you do for that muscle group, and you would also increase the amount of sets and reps that you also do for that said muscle group. And an example of a high volume training split would be something like a shoulders, arms, legs, chest and back routine. Even though these training splits are only a day apart, one's a 6-day training split, one's a 5-day training split, it's not so much about how many days you're in the gym, it's about how many times you're hitting that muscle group per week. With a high frequency program, you'll be doing shorter workouts, less sets, less exercise selections for those exercises, whereas with a high volume program, you would be doing longer workouts but less days. And to simplify this, I'm again going to put a graph on the screen to help illustrate the point that I'm trying to make. So here is a training split of someone that's doing a high volume training split and a high frequency training split of the two examples that we just gave. This being push-pull legs for frequency, and the shoulders, arms, legs, chest and back for a high volume training split. So what we're focusing on not so much is the exercises that are in each individual workout, we're actually looking at how many reps we are doing for each individual muscle group. So let's start with the high volume training splits. Now, if you go to the end of the column, you'll see a chart that says, or a tally that says totals. So if we total up all of the sets that they have done for their selected muscle groups, we'll see that the high volume training split has trained chest and done 180 reps on chest throughout that week, 160 reps for biceps, 160 reps for triceps, 280 reps for shoulders, 200 reps for legs, and 180 reps on back. So if you take a look below that, you'll see the totals for the high frequency training split. And you can see here that they have trained chest 200 reps, biceps 110, triceps 162, shoulders 160, legs 320, along with 40 reps of calves, which is again a leg exercise, and 320 reps for back. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's a debate at the moment in terms of which training split is more beneficial for muscle hypertrophy or building muscle. Is it more beneficial to train a certain muscle group multiple times throughout the week, or to train a singular muscle throughout a day but apply more sets, more reps and more exercise variations to that selected muscle group? So because it only takes around 48 to 72 hours for a muscle to fully recover post-workout, is it beneficial to wait a whole 7 days, so 4 days over what you could be training it? Is it more beneficial to wait those 7 days to train that muscle group again? Whereas with a high volume training split, where you're only training a singular muscle per day and you are waiting a full week to train that muscle group again, the longer workouts, one, give you more of an exercise variation or exercise selection, and this is beneficial because muscle groups work in more than just one way. You wouldn't only do a bench press to grow your chest, you would also do pec flies, cable flies, or a pec deck, so a pushing and a fly motion. Not only do you get more exercise selection variation, but it is stated in some studies that the more you apply metabolic stress to a muscle group. So the more weight that you're putting it under, this being through more sets and more reps and more exercises, you're able to hit more muscle fibers than what you would be able to hit with a high frequency training split, because you're only training for a short time on that muscle group and then you're moving on to another one. Whereas in a volume training split, you can spend a lot of time on that muscle group. Both have their pros and cons. I'll put a list here of the pros and cons of both a high frequency and high volume training split. But at the end of the day, they're getting you in the gym, they're getting you training, and they're getting you towards your goal. Me, personally, I have ran a variation of both training splits. I've done high volume back in the day. I did an arms, legs, push and pull training split. But I also have run, and I'm currently running, a high frequency training split at the moment. So I am doing a push-pull legs training split. And doing them both, I can tell you now, I've enjoyed them both. I really liked spending a day on working just my arms, and I like today working my chest and back and legs. But I like being in the gym more. And for me personally, I don't see the point in waiting 4 extra days to train a muscle group if it's ready to train in 3 days post-workout. But that's just my personal opinion. Each training split is subjective to each individual. You may like a high volume training split. I personally prefer a high frequency training split because I'm in the gym more anyway. So that brings us on to the last topic of today's video, and that's exercise selection and sets and reps. How many you should be doing for a specific exercise. There are 2 types of movements that you can do, or exercises you can do. Compound exercises and isolation exercises. A compound exercise requires multiple muscle groups to work over multiple joints in order to complete or perform that exercise or movement. An example of this would be something like a bench press, where the main or primary muscle group of the exercise is going to be your chest, but you've also got your shoulders and triceps as supporting or assisting muscle groups for the exercise, and you're also using 2 joints, your rotator cuff and your elbow at the top or extension of the movement. You can see as I'm doing it now, I'm using chest, triceps and shoulders, but I'm also using 2 joints, my elbow lever and my rotator cuff, to perform that exercise. And an isolation exercise is exactly what it is. It's isolated. You isolate a singular muscle group and you only work it over a singular joint. An example of this could be something like a bicep curl. So if I was to perform a bicep curl, I'm isolating the bicep because no other muscle group is going to be working during this exercise, and the only joint that I'm using is my lever joint at my elbow, and that's just to perform extension and flexion of the bicep muscle itself. Nothing else is being used. And when it comes to creating a workout to implement into your training split, I would highly recommend that you spend the first 30 to 45 minutes focusing on a compound movement of any kind. And the reason for this is because you're using multiple muscle groups and multiple joints, you're able to lift more weight, in turn putting your muscle groups, or that specific muscle, under more metabolic stress. And the key for muscle growth, one of the key components of muscle growth, there's 3, I'm only gonna list 1 at the moment, and that's metabolic stress. That's just putting your muscle groups, or your muscle, under a specific load, this being weight. The more weight you put it under, the more beneficial it's going to be. So because there is a lot being used in the compound movement, it also requires a lot of energy to perform it. So there's no point being 45 minutes into a workout where you focus solely on doing isolation exercises like a cable fly or a pec deck or a dumbbell fly or a hammer strength press to work your chest, and then move on to a movement that in the beginning is going to give you more benefits because you're going to be able to lift heavier with more correct form. The more fatigued you are, the easier it is to slip out of form. With isolation exercises, most of them are on machines, or most of them are very easy to perform when you're fatigued. Whereas a compound movement, you need to be focused, you need to have as much in the tank to keep everything tight so you're working the correct muscle groups for that day. So once you've done this, you can then move on to your isolation exercises. I always start off every single workout. I'll start a push workout off with a bench, I'll start a back workout off with a lat pull down, and I'll start my leg workout off with a squats. And that's most every time I do those specific workouts. So now let's touch on to rep ranges. So on the screen at the moment, you'll see a graph with the specific rep ranges for specific training needs. And these are divided into 3 categories. Category 1 is strength training, and this is just 6 to 8 reps. Now, strength training, the idea behind strength training is, yes, you gain a little bit of size and you look like you lift, but you will be able to lift more than what it looks like you can do. If you're looking to enter a strongman competition or a powerlifting competition, this would be a good rep range for you to follow. But alternatively, if you're looking to get beach body ready or just have a 6-pack and a really well-defined physique, you may want to look in the hypertrophy range, which if you look is anywhere from 8 to 12 reps. This is the range that promotes or elicits the best muscle growth. And then if we look at the final box, this is endurance training, and this is anywhere from 15 plus reps. This is a training style that you'll find more in CrossFit and endurance athletes. You will rarely ever find a bodybuilder or a powerlifter that does any exercise above 15 to 20 reps. So now you may be thinking, well, which rep range do I apply for a variety of exercises? And the easiest way to think about this is like so. With your compound movements, because you're able to lift heavier, it's more ideal to go really heavy and stick to a low rep range, something like your 6 to 8 reps. So again, we can increase that metabolic stress, so the amount of weight we lift onto our muscle groups. And with isolation exercises, because it's only a singular muscle working with a singular joint, they're unable to handle such heavy loads without the risk of injury. So in this case, you would just select the hypertrophy rep range, which is 8 to 12 reps when we look at the graph. And now that brings us on to how many sets you should be doing for these exercises. It's key to know that more doesn't always equal better. There's what's known as the law of diminishing returns. And basically what this means is that the more you do, the longer something is done, the less return on investment you're going to get from it. So for example, in business, you could be plowing so much money into a sales pitch or into a project, and it could be going on for months and months. You can put so much time, so much money into it, and at the end of the day, it just doesn't work out. You can apply that similar logic to training. So the more sets we do, at the beginning, yes, there's a lot of stimulation and there's a lot of return on investment, so how much muscle we can build in those first 3 to 4 sets. And anything after that, the benefits that you get from doing these extra sets are very, very minuscule. So in that case, I would never go higher than maybe 4 to 5 sets on exercises. With compound movements, I rarely ever go past 3. I only ever do 3 sets of 8 reps on compound movements. I'll add a 4th set in if I need to help with progressive overload, which we'll get into on another video, but it's very rare that I'll go past 4 sets on a compound movement and past 5 sets on an isolation, and even then, it's very rare that I do that. So there's a basic understanding of training splits. We've covered what they are, the types of training splits, exercise selection, reps, and sets. And as always, I hope you've learned something from this video. I hope you can apply some of this to your own training splits, or if you haven't got a training split, hopefully now you can create your own. And I will see you this Thursday, not next week, because Thursday is the start to a new weekly series that I'm going to be doing here on my channel, but you've got to stay tuned to Thursday to find out. So make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, you're hitting the notification bell so you know when this series is announced, and I'll see you in Thursday's video.